You know what's crazy? I started a whole anime on this channel for about almost 3 years at this point, going into this thing, and I haven't really established a lot of things outside of the story episodes and videos itself, and rarely do I ever really talk about, ongoing lore things or things that is in my mind that I probably never really stated outside of those type of things and things of the sort like that, right? And I don't really do it too much because I obviously know not everybody comes to this channel for this, not everybody even knows what the hell is going on in the story itself, but there has been people that has kept track of it, kept watching it, and still just thoroughly enjoys what the hell is happening. So when it comes down to it, I do want to give JSX4 its own separate videos just regardless, because I think it has enough attention and enough people caring for it to do so. Back then when I did it, it was always like a, select few people that's probably gonna watch it like that and all that type of stuff. But now I feel like people kind of care for it more. So that's kind of part of the reason why I'm like, let's just kind of discuss lore things or world building or powers now, because why not? I feel like you need to kind of understand that stuff to get where the story is going, because if I don't explain it, then you would probably think anything's possible and this can happen and that can happen, when in reality it may or may not be able to. First things first, the fox design. What's the deal with this? Well, to be very simple, if we're talking about a realistic approach, one, I like foxes. Two, I like the color blue because of Sonic, and that's just the reason why I did so. I just kind of fused them together and try to make a blue version of Miles' tail Prower, so you're welcome on that. But in lore wise, to be honest, they're their own species, the Foxian species, if I'm gonna be absolutely real, and that's kind of what you see when it comes to Saki, Aoki, and any other female character that happens to have a fox tail on them. They all come from that very same race. And when you really kind of look at the biology of these characters, their biology is stronger and more durable and more speedy and more intelligent than a regular human by 2 times. You train those and you actually can make it about 4 times, a bit more stronger and durable and all that type of stuff. Which, speaking of his biology, there's actually something unique to Jay's biology that I have never really said, and really it's only exists in one other version of his character. But when it comes down to it, if you touch his foxtail and you're someone that he doesn't necessarily know, or you're not necessarily, someone that he has a keen interest in, if you touch his tail, he probably will have like a very, scared kind of like reaction if you touch it unannounced, right? And the same way with his ears. Yes, he does have fox ears, you just don't see it because he hides them all the time. But when it comes down to it, the same kind of reaction will happen as well. But if you touch it and you're someone that he loves, or you essentially have feelings for him in his heart or whatever, and things of the sort like that, then he'll start get submissive and kind of be very sensitive about things, kind of basically showing you the side that he would never show anybody else. Anyway, one other thing that I haven't, at least I don't think I really said hard, is that the universe that Jade's take place with the story and everything else, the whole school, the whole going to high school DxD's universe and things of the sort like that, that doesn't happen in our regular space-time, right? So the way that you should think about this world is essentially 3 different layers. The multiverse layer that we kind of all are in right now, the real world that we exist, that we're watching YouTube on and shit like that. This world, this is the first main base of everything, right? So you have this, you got a firmament that surrounds the multiverse of everything that we are currently in, which is just straight up nothing but chaotic energy. Essentially, if you try to go into that firmament for too long, you will automatically die. That is how that firmament works. You're not supposed to be there. It's just nothing but destruction, debris, and utter shattered worlds and ideas of different worlds that are basically just in a very chaotic state. You can kind of take an idea of, this is like the dark world from Kingdom Hearts. Essentially, this is like the realm of darkness, essentially, where you have the different versions of these worlds, but they're kind of like destroyed and not looking great, and they're surrounded in just pure dark, messed up energy. That's essentially the firmament surrounding, completely surrounding the multiverse of where we are. And then right outside that firmament is essentially Jay's whole universe. outside of that. It's where he basically exists. So he doesn't really exist within regular space-time. He exists within a time of his own type of space, that he was granted to have in the very beginning of things. Now that we established that, let's talk about one of the bigger details that I have never really mentioned, because it's always kind of hard to do stuff like this. How does Jay work his powers? Like, anytime he gets the chance to, how is he able to transform into purification? How is Blue able to use the power reject? How is Shoko able to use her superhuman strength and things of the sort like that? How all does that work out? And the very basic answer I can give you is a very simple one, is that they kind of just will it to be so. To be very honest with you, the way I envision powers and how people kind of use them in any anime or any show or anything like that would essentially just be like, you can imagine something and then you will it into existence, right? Sure, you might have like other different rules of how things work, like you might need to use some type of energy source or other things like that, but for the most basic sort of sense of how powers work for me, it's always you think about it first and then you will it into existence and then you just go about it from there. So that's just kind of how it goes. So anytime Jay is basically trying to transform into something, or try to go into this purification state rather, he has to think that he's going into it and then use his actual willpower to will it to be so. So that's how it is. Anytime that he uses any ability, or any of the girls uses ability, that's basically the logic, right? And sure, that's very vague, and that obviously can be counteracted in a bunch of other types of discussions, but that's kind of how it is to keep it simple for me, so I don't necessarily be all across the world trying to figure out how this work, how that work, how this work, how that work. So for example, let's just say, one of the characters get into a fight with a bad guy or something like that. The only way they can really struggle or power struggle against each other is really to see whose will is more stronger than the other. So that's just kind of how it is. Let's say, Shoko and Jay fought right now. When it comes down to these two, really whoever wins would just become down to, again, their willpower. Let's say both of them can use a Kamehameha. The only person that can win, again, will be just come down to willpower. So Shoko's will stronger than Jay, Shoko will win that. Jay's will stronger than Shoko's, Jay will win that. And so on and so forth. The only other third thing I can definitely say that does kind of have effects when it comes to powers and such is how much you can handle that type of thing, right? So let's say you decided to just fly across the world just to kind of see what's going on. You might be extremely tired after that, or you just might be a little exhausted or so, right? So, you have that part of it where it's like, how much can your body really take of that? That's also like a whole nother thing to kind of consider. So there is definitely that. But outside of that, I really just wanted to keep the powers simple, how things work. And the last thing I want to touch upon really is power scaling. Now, I am not someone that's good at power scaling. I have never really had an idea to power scale too much, but when it comes down to it, I think it's also fair to kind of give these characters some type of where the hell they kind of work at, like what is the peak of their power, what is their base of their power, and things of the sort like that. So I really only know Jay's power scaling to a bit, and even then I'm not sure, because I was really thinking, well, who would win in a fight, Issei or Jay? And as much as I would like to say, oh, Jay would wipe the floor with Issei, I wasn't really sure, so I kind of had to think about it for a minute. So if I were to say where his base at, well, like with his regular base form, what is the deal with that? And that really comes down to, nothing really special. It's not really anything I would say that's really worth your time to be worried about. If Issei, and really this happened in the story, Issei and Jay did fight, and really it came down to who really wants it more, So Jay could easily have lost that fight, and he did win it, but still he could have easily lost that, because it's not really anything different from a regular human. Sure, he might be a bit more durable, sure he might be a bit more stronger and faster and a little bit more intelligent, but that doesn't necessarily mean that almighty or unbeatable or some shit like that in his base. Like, no, that's not how it works. And essentially, that just kind of only changes up when he starts transforming. So in his purification state, yeah, that's when things get a bit more crazier, and that's where the power jumps tremendously. And so at that point I had to kind of scale, all right, so who would be scalable to him within that universe I can kind of realistically kind of look at? And the only other character I can think of, because Jay has a comparable feat to that person, would be Nyx itself. So Nyx, obviously we know, is a Greek goddess who controls basically the darkness, death, has children that, you know, controls fate and whatever and stuff like that, and just things of the sort like that. Not even Zeus want to throw hands with Nyx. And just looking at the many different interpretations of that character, it's pretty much universal, right? Universal power. So I think Jay in his transform purification state is within that realm of universal to close to universal, so something like that, you know. I don't think he's weak in that form, obviously. I didn't think that in the beginning, but he wasn't necessarily someone I was thinking that was going to be super strong. But I think universal is a fine touch of it, because when it comes to also transformations in this show, it's not like you transform to get stronger. You transform for a different sense of self, which you'll see something about that in future episodes. But basically, purification, just to kind of give you a small breakdown, it's about Jay accepting what he wants, essentially trying to be calm, collected, trying to focus on what matters in the moment in time, but also not necessarily losing his cool about certain things. And that's just kind of how his current state of being is when it comes to purification, you know. So if you have a state of being where he's calm, cool, and collected, then what other sorts of state of beings could Jay have? And that's really what I want to play off of, instead of, oh, he gets another transformation so he's more stronger. No, he isn't more stronger. He might do things differently in a different transformation, but he's not necessarily stronger. He's just pretty much on that universal level as purification is, just in a different looking form. So for a quick hint and example, if Jay decides to use purification to stay calm and, you know, keep collected and all that type of stuff, to use light type of abilities and things of sort like that, what do you think the opposite of that is? And you'll know what that is exactly when we get to that point in the story, which honestly is a transformation I've been sitting on for months now. But still, nonetheless, you kind of get the point. It's more so exploring the character depth within, instead of just, oh yeah, I'm getting stronger so I can beat this opponent. That's typical shonen anime shit, and that's something I didn't want to necessarily do. And that's with any transformation I might do in the future. So, you know, keep an eye out on that. I really just want to try to change up how transformations is done than your typical ones. But basically, that's really what I wanted to throw down with some of these types of lore bits and ideas and stuff like that regarding this story and series, because I don't really bring up these characters too much outside of their own respective world and canon, which I kind of need to start doing, because just looking at things like Otaku Versus and how their channel kind of works with Oda-chan, and looking at Dai Tomodachi and how, you know, their whole Kakyoin waifu series kind of works and things like that, how much of that is within their own channel and space. To be honest, I really need to do more with those girls and just do more with that universe in general. So there's definitely is that, but definitely I wanted to chuck in some lore bits that you may have known, maybe have taken a guess at, maybe not necessarily known at all, and just kind of want to chuck it out there because why not? Again, there's plenty of people that care for this story and care for these girls, so might as well chuck something else in there. Plus, I haven't done like an origin story or history of these girls for a minute, so kind of need to start going back and doing that shit. But we'll jump to that when we get to jump to that. But that's really what I want to say for this one. So hopefully you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe, hit the bell notification and we're out. Also follow my socials, and if you listen to the channel, Kofi and Cash App is available as well. Until next time, Jay, signing off. Have a blessed day.